My wife served divorce papers at my retirement party while my kids clapped. Now they beg me back. She humiliated me in front of everyone. I waited, watched, and turned the tables. The moment of revenge was sweeter than anyone could imagine. At my retirement party, my wife handed me divorce papers while our kids clapped, and I was stunned. But this story isn't about defeat. It's about patience, strategy, and ultimate revenge. Watch as Zaha, a 62-year-old man betrayed by his own family, exposes lies, reclaims his dignity, and restores order in his life. From humiliation to triumph, this story shows how calm, calculated action can turn betrayal into victory. If you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted, this video will remind you that justice and respect can be earned, no matter the circumstances. Welcome back to your ultimate destination for gripping revenge stories, family betrayals, shocking betrayals, and emotional justice. Subscribe now and join a community and tell us where you're watching from. Turn on the notification bell for our next story. Are you ready to witness the ultimate payback? Let's get started. After decades of grinding, long nights, and sacrifices I can barely remember making, I was finally at my retirement party. Friends, colleagues, and family had gathered at the grand hall downtown. Balloons hung from the ceiling. A live band played soft jazz in the corner, and a cake sat waiting to be cut. I should have been proud. I should have been glowing. I should have been happy. But in a heartbeat, all of that vanished. Vanessa, my wife of 30 years. She appeared at the top of the staircase, holding a manila envelope in her hand. My first thought was, what is she doing? Then the world seemed to slow as she descended, slowly, deliberately, her heels clicking on the polished floor. Before I could even approach, she thrust the envelope at me. Zaha, she said with a tone so cold it froze my veins. You need to sign this. I took the envelope. My eyes widened. Divorce papers. The crowd froze. Some murmured in confusion. Others stared, eyes wide, unsure what to do. But the worst part? The part that cut deeper than the papers themselves? My own children. They clapped. Not for me, not for my years of hard work, not for the party I had thought was my honor. They clapped as if this was some show, as if the humiliation of their father was entertainment. I stared at the papers in my hand, shaking slightly. My pulse raced. I could feel my face heat up, my jaw tightening. I had dreamed of this night for years, a celebration of what I had built, and now Vanessa had turned it into a stage for shame. Why are you clapping? I asked, my voice firm but low. It wasn't a shout. I wanted them to feel the gravity of their actions, the weight of their betrayal. Silence. That silence was worse than words. Vanessa smirked. It's not my fault if they see the truth, Zaha. Maybe this is what you deserve. I stared at her. I wanted to yell, to throw the papers, to make her feel the tiniest fraction of the betrayal she had orchestrated. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because this wasn't about reacting in anger. It was about strategy. It was about patience. It was about teaching them a lesson they would never forget. I left the hall quietly, my hands clutching the envelope as if it were a ticking bomb. Outside, in the quiet night air, I allowed myself a deep breath. The world hadn't ended yet. There was still time. There was still power in silence. I opened the envelope in the car. The papers were real. Signed. Official. Everything I thought I had left intact in my marriage, my dignity, my role, my legacy, had been ripped from me in front of the people I loved most. And yet, something shifted inside me. A spark of calm. A spark of resolve. I realized in that moment. Vanessa thought she had won. The kids thought they had won. But they had underestimated me. I didn't need to confront her at the party. I didn't need to yell, cry, or beg. I only needed to act. Carefully. Patiently. Strategically. That night, I sat in my study, alone, staring at the ceiling. I began making notes, small things I'd observed over the years, every inconsistency, every hidden transaction, every subtle betrayal. I wasn't planning chaos. I was planning justice. Because humiliation can be returned, but only if you control the moment. And I would control it. I whispered to myself, they think this is over. They have no idea what's coming next. Comment below. If your spouse humiliated you in front of everyone, would you confront them immediately or plan your revenge like Zaha? The night after my retirement party, I sat in the dim glow of my study, the divorce papers lying on the desk in front of me like a challenge thrown down. I could hear the muffled laughter of the party cleaning crew outside, oblivious to the chaos Vanessa had stirred. The champagne glasses, the speeches, the smiles, all gone, replaced by humiliation and disbelief. I ran my hand over my face, trying to steady my racing thoughts. How could they do this? My own children, applauding the destruction of their father's dignity. Vanessa, standing there smug, thinking she had me trapped. I had built this family, worked my entire life to give them security, and in one act, it felt as though it had been erased. I felt the urge to storm over to the hall, grab Vanessa by the shoulders, and scream, "Do you know what you've done?" But I didn't. I knew better. I had learned long ago that anger was a poor weapon. Strategy, patience, and observation were far more lethal. I picked up the envelope again, tracing the signature with my finger. The legal language was cold, unfeeling. But beneath the words, I could feel the cracks in Vanessa's facade. I had known her for decades. I knew where she had been careless, where she had underestimated me, where her hubris had blinded her. And now, I would use it. I began to write. Not a letter, not an angry note. Notes for myself, facts, figures, observations. Hidden bank accounts, financial discrepancies, her careless management of investments, her manipulations of the kids. Every detail became ammunition. Every small betrayal was now a tool in my arsenal. For hours, I didn't move from the chair. My coffee had gone cold, my phone vibrated silently, but I didn't care. I was constructing my plan. And in doing so, I felt a strange satisfaction. There was power in silence, power in restraint, power in letting them think they had won while I quietly gathered my strength. The kids came by later, pretending to be concerned. Emma, my eldest, smiled nervously. "Dad, are you okay?" I nodded slowly, keeping my face calm, neutral. Inside, my mind was working faster than it had in years. I watched their expressions. Their guilt was thinly veiled behind curiosity, almost amusement. That was their mistake. Vanessa tried calling me, 3 times in quick succession. I didn't answer. I let it ring. Every missed call was a lesson. Every ignored message built tension, anxiety. I let them wonder what I was thinking, what I was planning. I thought about the retirement party, about the eyes on me, the gasps, the children clapping. And I realized something important. They believed that humiliation could break me. They were wrong. Humiliation was temporary. Strategy was permanent. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence sink in. The night stretched long, and I felt no anger, no despair. Only focus, only resolve. By the next morning, I had made decisions. I would not confront them in rage. I would not beg for apologies. I would act. Quietly. Patiently. Precisely. Every move measured. Every interaction deliberate. I began observing Vanessa with new eyes. Every slip, every inconsistency, every casual comment about finances became a clue. And I watched my children carefully. Their reactions, their loyalties, their fears, they were all pieces on a chessboard I was finally ready to control. The difference now was clear. Before, I had let pride and love blind me to deception. Now, every action, every thought, every word was a step toward reclaiming my dignity. That night, as I closed my notebook, I whispered to myself, "They think this is the end. They have no idea the game has just begun." I could feel the tension building. Vanessa thinks I'm paralyzed by humiliation. The kids think they can manipulate me. But they're about to learn the consequences of underestimating me. Comment below. If your family betrayed you, would you act immediately or plan a slow, strategic comeback like Zaha? Like this video if you believe patience and planning are the ultimate revenge. After the retirement party disaster, my wife handing me divorce papers while my own children applauded, I disappeared. Not forever. Just long enough to remind myself who I was before I built a life that clearly meant more to me than to them. For 40 years I worked as a mechanical systems engineer, long shifts, overnight problem solving, crawling inside machinery while everyone else slept. It wasn't glamorous, but I was damn good at it. I provided everything. A home, education, comfort, stability. And somehow, that turned into something they believed they were entitled to, not grateful for. But if my wife, Linda, and my children, Evan and Chloe, thought I would go quietly into the humiliation they planned, well, they never really knew me. Not at all. On the morning after the party, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from coworkers. "Zaha, man, I can't believe she did that. You deserved better. If you need anything, I'm here. But from my family?" Nothing. Not even my kids. They had clapped, cheered, smiled, as if my humiliation was entertainment. So I drove. No destination. Just miles of road under the tires of my old Ford truck, letting the wind dry the anger burning behind my eyes. After hours, I ended up at Lake Pinehart, where I used to camp when the kids were little, back when they thought I hung the moon. I sat on a bench and watched the water rippling. My mind replayed the party like a broken film reel. Linda standing there in a red dress, smiling like the devil signing a contract. Evan clapping first, like he'd rehearsed it. Chloe recording the moment with her phone, God knows for what. And then the final punch. Don't make a scene, Zaha. We've all talked about this. It's for the best. We've all talked about this. My wife, my kids, my family, all of them planning my downfall like a group project, as if I were the problem in their perfect lives. Just when I thought I had no one left, my phone buzzed again, this time with a name I hadn't seen in years. Samuel Rockford, my former apprentice, and now CEO of one of the largest engineering firms in the country. He had been at the party, sitting quietly in the back. When the drama happened, he was the only one who didn't clap. I answered. Zaha, Samuel said. I've been trying to reach you. Are you okay? Not really, I said plainly. I figured, he said. Listen, I don't want to pry, but I left the party early. I couldn't watch what they did to you. That alone made my throat tighten. Thanks, I said. There was a pause, then. I want to talk to you. About something big. Something life-changing. Are you in town? Kind of, I said. I'm at Pinehart. I'll come there, he replied. Don't move. Samuel arrived in less than an hour. He stepped out of his car, a sleek black Tesla, and walked toward me with the same respect he had as a young intern 20 years ago. He sat beside me. You don't deserve what happened, he said quietly. I thought my family loved me, I replied. He didn't sugarcoat it. They love what you provide. Not you. Painful. True. Then he pulled out a folder. I didn't plan to give you this so soon, he admitted. But after what I saw, I decided you shouldn't wait. Inside were documents. Legal ones. Business ones. Shareholder agreements. I blinked hard, confused. What is this? I asked. A partnership, he said. I'm opening a new division, systems innovation. I need someone with your experience to lead it. It'll make you one of the top executives. Salary, bonuses, shares. I stared at him, stunned. You want me, after I retired? I want you because you retired, he said. You finally have the time. And because you taught me everything I know. For the first time in days, I felt something other than pain. Purpose. And there's more, he added. The launch event is public. Press, TV investors. I want you standing beside me. And that, right there, sparked something dark and fierce in my chest. A chance. Not just to rebuild, but to rise higher than my family ever expected. Higher than they ever imagined. And maybe show them exactly what they threw away. That night, I checked into a quiet lakeside lodge Samuel booked for me. Around 8 p.m., there was a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, it was my daughter, Chloe. Her eyes were red. She looked terrified. Dad, she whispered. Please, I need to talk to you. Everything is falling apart. She stepped inside before I could say a word. Mom shouldn't have done it like that, she said. But you need to come home. Evan is freaking out. Mom is talking to a lawyer again. And, Dad, everything is going wrong. I crossed my arms. And why is that my problem? She blinked. Because we need you. Not love you. Not miss you. Not are worried about you. Need. Always need. Then she said something that snapped everything into place like a puzzle piece I'd been searching for. Dad, please. Mom only filed the divorce because she thought your retirement money would come in immediately. But the lawyer said she might only get half. And Evan, he made some financial mistakes. We need. I raised my hand. You need my money, I said slowly. She froze. Dad, it's not like that. But it was exactly like that. I finally saw the truth. They didn't clap because they hated me. They clapped because they thought they had just secured their future. But they were wrong. Very, very wrong. I stepped closer. Chloe, I said calmly. You all made your choice. Her lip trembled. Dad, what are you going to do? I opened the folder Samuel had given me. Her eyes widened as she recognized the company name and the numbers on the page. Her mouth fell open. Dad, is that? I closed the folder. You'll find out soon enough. Her breath caught. Dad, please don't do anything drastic. I smiled. Oh, trust me, Chloe. I'm just getting started. What exactly is Zaha planning at the public launch event? And how will his wife and children react when they realize the power they thought they had is slipping away? The morning after Chloe's frantic visit, I woke to silence. No phone calls. No messages. Just the soft hum of the lake outside my window. A calm that felt almost too good to be true. I poured coffee, black, no sugar. Sipped slowly, savoring the quiet before the storm. My mind replayed the events of the past few days. Retirement party humiliation, Vanessa's calculated attack, my children's applause. Every single betrayal burned fresh. But that fire wasn't for anger anymore. It was for action. I opened Samuel's folder again, reviewing every document, every plan, every opportunity. He had done me a favor without even realizing it. He had handed me my weapon. A new division of a top tech firm, the launch public, press and investors in attendance, me at the helm. The perfect stage to reclaim respect, dignity, and control. And maybe, just maybe, make Vanessa and my kids see exactly how much they had underestimated me. I spent hours on the phone, speaking with Samuel, refining my role, going over details. Every number, every graph, every press note had to be perfect. I couldn't afford a single mistake. Then, I turned my attention to Vanessa. I didn't call her. I didn't confront her. Instead, I observed her movements through my network, checking public filings, monitoring small hints, seeing who she was talking to. She was panicking. I could see it in the way she tried to make arrangements for her half of the retirement settlement. And my kids? Evan was already in over his head with some bad investments. And Chloe? Well, Chloe's panic was evident in every whispered phone call I overheard while casually checking emails. They thought they had won. They were scrambling. That gave me the edge. Patience, planning, power in silence. That evening, I decided to make a quiet, subtle move. I invited Samuel and a few old colleagues to a casual dinner at my lake lodge. Nothing formal, just a friendly gathering. But I had a purpose. As I served wine, casually, I brought up past achievements. Remember the Pinecrest Bridge project? I said, smiling. We pulled that off under impossible deadlines. Most people would have quit. Samuel nodded, impressed. You were incredible, Zaha. Still are. I smirked. The others laughed politely. But my satisfaction wasn't in their praise. It was in knowing Vanessa and the kids had no clue what was brewing. They thought I was defeated. But I was plotting a return they would never forget. By the end of the evening, a subtle idea had formed in my mind. A public demonstration of my value. One they couldn't ignore. One that would show that while they tried to humiliate me, I was still the one in control. The next morning, I called Vanessa. Calmly. No anger. No pleading. Just a simple tone. Vanessa, we need to talk about the retirement documents. There was a pause. Then she said sharply, Zaha, I don't have time for this. We've agreed. Agreed? No. You've agreed with yourself? I replied evenly. I have some information you might find interesting. And before you panic, just know this. I'm not angry. I'm prepared. I could hear her inhale sharply. A tiny crack in her confidence. That's all I needed. I hung up. That was enough for now. No confrontation. No yelling. Just the knowledge that she was aware I wasn't helpless. Planning the launch event. The key was the upcoming launch. Public. Investors. Media. I would be standing next to Samuel, introducing the new division. Every eye on me. Every word. Every gesture. Every smile calculated. I worked late into the night, rehearsing, planning, visualizing the reactions. Vanessa would be there, of course, trying to maintain her pride. Evan and Chloe would try to look supportive, but I could see right through them. And when I made my move, it would be subtle. Nothing brash. Nothing angry. Just a demonstration of success and dignity so glaring, so undeniable, they wouldn't know whether to laugh, cry, or collapse in embarrassment. Sitting alone in the dark, I let myself think about the years I had lost. The pride I had sacrificed for a family that didn't appreciate me. And I promised myself something. No humiliation this time. No more. This was not revenge and rage. This was revenge and triumph. It wasn't about hurting Vanessa or the kids. It was about reclaiming what was mine, my dignity, my honor, my respect. And when they realized how completely outmaneuvered they had been, the shock would be so powerful it would stay with them forever. The stage is set. The retirement humiliation is behind me. The public launch is coming. Vanessa thinks she's won. Evan and Chloe think they've outsmarted me. but they have no idea what's about to happen. Will Zaha's calculated public comeback humiliate Vanessa and the kids in return? Will he reclaim his dignity and financial control? Comment below. If someone tried to ruin your retirement or humiliate you in public, would you strike back with patience or confront them immediately? For the first time since the retirement disaster, I felt powerful. Like every betrayal had sharpened me, refined me, built me for this exact moment. I shaved, dressed in a crisp navy suit, polished my shoes until I could see my reflection. Look at you, I said to myself. A man they tried to bury. A man they thought was done. A man who refused to die. When I stepped out of the car, the hotel was already buzzing. Journalists, photographers, investors, executives. A red carpet of opportunity. The kind of place Vanessa adored, and yet today, the spotlight wasn't hers. It was mine. As I walked in, shoulders squared, Samuel jogged over to me with a grin. Zaha, my man, you ready to make history? I smiled. I've been ready since the day they clapped while she handed me divorce papers. Samuel laughed, unaware of the weight behind my words. Inside, the ballroom glittered with corporate wealth, chandeliers, branded banners, the soft thrum of expensive perfume and ambition. People were already whispering about the new division head, curious, speculating. I loved it. Let them whisper. Then, like poison in a river, I felt their presence before I saw them. Vanessa, Evan, Chloe. They walked in together. Vanessa in a pearl-white dress she wore like armor. Evan checking his hair in a window's reflection. Chloe clutching her phone like a lifeline. They weren't here to support me. They were here to measure the enemy. Vanessa spotted me first. Her facial expression didn't change, but her fingers twitched, subtle, nervous. Good. She should be nervous. Evan smirked like a bored teenager. Chloe looked like she'd been crying all night. I didn't walk toward them. I didn't offer a greeting. I let them stew in confusion. Samuel called me backstage to run through last-minute details. As he pointed at slides, graphs, projections, I scanned the crowd through the curtain. Vanessa and the kids were seated in the front row, exactly where I wanted them. Your speech is after mine, Samuel said. We kept it simple, but impactful. I nodded. Everything was falling into place. Then Samuel added, Zaha, you're about to surprise a lot of people. I smiled slowly. Samuel, I'm about to surprise even more than you know. The lights dimmed. Music swelled. Samuel strode on stage as the screen lit up behind him. Ladies and gentlemen, today we introduce the new era of ascendant technologies. Applause thundered through the room. I stayed in the wings, listening carefully. Every word brought us closer to my moment. Then, and now, the man who will lead this division into the future, a man with decades of field experience, unmatched leadership, and resilience, Mr. Zaha Hayes. For a second, the world went quiet. Then applause shook the walls. I stepped out into the light. Flashes exploded as photographers snapped away. People leaned forward. Vanessa froze. Evan's jaw dropped. Chloe covered her mouth with both hands. I walked to the podium like I owned the room, because at that moment, I did. I tapped the microphone gently. Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to be here today. My voice echoed through the hall, steady, confident, unbroken. For the past year, I've faced challenges I never expected. Not from strangers, but from the people closest to me. A ripple went through the audience. Evan stiffened. Chloe's breathing quickened. Vanessa blinked twice, her tell when she was anxious. But challenges reveal character, and they reveal truth. I clicked the remote. Behind me, the screen showed photos of my past engineering projects, achievements, milestones, things my family always dismissed as nothing special. The crowd murmured with admiration. My life isn't over because I retired. It's beginning again. And today proves that. Samuel nodded proudly. My old colleagues clapped. Investors leaned forward like they'd found buried gold. I looked directly at Vanessa. A calm, cold smile formed on her lips and cracked at the edges. Then came the moment they never saw coming. Before we close, I continued. I have one announcement. The audience stilled. In order to accept this position, I legally transferred all my eligible retirement assets into a private trust. Solely under my control. Protected. Vanessa's head jerked. Evan sat up straight. Chloe gasped audibly. And this trust, I added, has already been activated. Meaning any attempt to access or claim my funds, past or future, has no legal standing. Shock. Pure, delicious shock flooded their faces. Vanessa's confidence shattered. Evan blinked like he'd been slapped. Chloe's hands trembled. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't gloat. I simply said, I've worked my whole life for my stability, and no one, not even family, will steal it from me. The audience erupted in applause. Vanessa looked like she wanted the floor to open and swallow her whole. When the event ended, people swarmed me. Handshakes, congratulations, interview requests. But through every conversation, my eyes kept drifting to Vanessa and the kids. They stayed seated, frozen, absorbing the blow. They now understood. I wasn't weak. I wasn't defeated. I wasn't disposable. I was a man who rose from humiliation and claimed victory without raising a fist. But the storm wasn't over. Not yet. Because after most attendees left, Vanessa stood and whispered to Evan and Chloe, "Go. I need a moment alone with him." She walked toward me slowly, as if approaching a judge she feared. And when she finally stood in front of me, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Zaha, we need to talk. What does Vanessa want? An apology? A negotiation? Or a final, desperate attempt to regain control? And will Zaha listen, or shut her out for good? Comment. What would you do if your ex tried to reclaim control after publicly humiliating you?" The ballroom had cleared, leaving only a few stragglers and the security team. Vanessa stood before me, her eyes wide, mouth slightly open, the color drained from her face. My children lingered a few steps behind, uneasy, hesitant, because they knew for the first time that I held the upper hand. I didn't rush to speak. I let the tension build, savoring the moment like a master chess player before making a decisive move. Silence is a weapon people often underestimate. Finally, Vanessa's voice broke the quiet. "Zaha, what did you do?" I leaned casually against the podium, one hand resting on the sleek surface, the other holding the microphone as though it were a sword. "I did what any man would do when he's been humiliated in front of the people he trusted most," I said slowly, deliberately. "I protected myself. I reclaimed my dignity. And I made sure my future is mine alone." Her lip trembled. "But the trust, the assets, the company, they're all legally mine," I interrupted. "Protected, unreachable. And any attempt to interfere will have consequences you won't enjoy." She took a step closer, almost trembling. "Zaha, we didn't think you'd. Think I'd let my life be destroyed? That's where you went wrong," I said, cutting her off. My eyes bore into hers. "You taught me patience. You taught me to wait. And now? You see the result." Evan crossed his arms, trying to mask his fear behind a smug expression. "Dad, come on, you can't be serious." "Mom just wanted to." "Just wanted to what?" I asked, voice calm but steel underneath. "Take what's mine? Humiliate me in front of our peers? Clap while I got served divorce papers? That's what you call just wanting?" Chloe shrank slightly, clutching her phone. "Dad, we didn't mean." I raised a finger. "No, don't. Not a word. You applauded, you cheered, and you filmed. You participated in the betrayal. That's your fault. And now you'll see the consequences of your actions." The room felt thick with tension. Vanessa's hands trembled at her sides. Evan looked like he was ready to bolt. Chloe's eyes were wide with guilt and fear. The calm before the storm. I let them stew. Let the panic settle into them like a cold shadow. Then I smiled, just a faint, controlled smile. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, voice low but firm. "I am taking control of my life back. I will continue leading this company to heights you cannot imagine. You will witness it all. And you, Vanessa, you will see that your attempts to destroy me only made me stronger." Vanessa's mouth opened and closed, searching for words. There were none that could undo what had been done. Evan muttered something under his breath. I ignored him. Chloe whispered, "Dad, are you mad at us?" I let silence answer her. Sometimes, silence speaks louder than rage. The first lesson. "Let me make one thing clear," I continued. "I am not here to yell. I am not here to punish. I am here to educate. You made your choice. You decided to humiliate me in front of your friends, in front of your colleagues, in front of everyone who respected me. Now you will see what it means to lose control over someone who once gave you everything." I paused, letting the words sink in. The weight of reality pressed on them. The arrogance they wore like armor was crumbling. Then I turned to Samuel, who had quietly stepped forward. "Samuel, would you mind?" Samuel nodded, smiling subtly. He stepped to the podium and clicked a button on the remote. The large screen behind us flickered to life. Document after document appeared. Legal confirmations of my trust. Statements proving the divorce papers were challenged and invalid. Financial records showing my children's mismanagement of personal accounts, all of which I had quietly monitored. Vanessa gasped. Zaha. Patience, Vanessa. I interrupted, calm, collected, in control. You see, I've always known. I watched. I listened. And I waited. You thought ignorance was my weakness. You were wrong. Evan's eyes widened as the numbers scrolled across the screen, showing just how mismanaged their finances had been. Chloe turned pale, realizing that their schemes had been carefully cataloged and neutralized long before they even thought I suspected. I looked at each of them, one by one. You see, every step you took to harm me, every plan you plotted in whispers and behind doors, was noted, recorded, and now undone. Vanessa stumbled back, a mixture of rage and fear flashing across her face. You can't do this. Oh, I already have, I replied, voice steady, piercing. And the best part? There's nothing you can do about it. The quiet triumph. I stepped down from the podium and walked toward them, slowly. Every eye in the room, staff, Samuel, even the security team, watched the confrontation. I placed a hand on Vanessa's shoulder. Not to intimidate, not to threaten, but to make it personal. This isn't about revenge, I said quietly. It's about respect, and about showing you that underestimating someone you hurt can be your biggest mistake. Evan looked at me, trying to find a way to argue. Dad, No, I said firmly. You did exactly what you wanted. You applauded your own deception. Now live with the results. Learn from them. And maybe, just maybe, you'll understand what loyalty really means. Chloe swallowed hard. Dad, will you forgive us? I smiled faintly. Forgiveness is earned. But respect is demanded. As I turned to leave the room, ready to step into my role at the launch, Vanessa whispered under her breath. This isn't over, Zaha, not by a long shot. I paused, not turning back. Let her try. Because I had control. I had power. And now, everyone, including my family, knew it. Comment below. Have you ever been betrayed by your family? Would you respond like Zaha, or forgive immediately? The tension from the launch still lingered in the air. Vanessa and the kids had retreated to their seats, whispering furiously among themselves. I, however, stayed on the stage, letting the applause die down before speaking again. This wasn't just about showing strength anymore. This was the final reckoning. The moment I would solidify my authority, my dignity, and my control over everything that had been threatened. I straightened my tie and stepped closer to the podium. My voice was calm, measured, deliberate. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, scanning the audience, my family included. We've all witnessed success today. But behind every success, there are challenges, some expected, some not. And some come from the people you trust most. Vanessa flinched, as if the words were a whip across her face. Evan looked down at his shoes, and Chloe's hands fidgeted nervously. Good. I continued, deliberately pausing between words for effect. In my case, the unexpected challenges came from my own home. From people who should have celebrated my achievements instead of trying to undermine them. The room was quiet now. Every guest was listening, some whispering. My family could no longer hide. They were trapped in the spotlight with me. I tapped the remote and a new slide appeared. Emails, text messages, and financial documents revealing Vanessa's attempts to manipulate, interfere, and take control of my retirement assets. Every move, every secret plot, laid bare for all to see. Vanessa gasped audibly, her composure slipping. Zaha, you can't. I cut her off gently, almost like a teacher correcting a student. I already did. I observed, I recorded, I waited. And now, the truth is public. Nothing you did in private can survive in the light. Evan's jaw tightened, realizing that the carefully constructed lies he had participated in were crumbling. Chloe's face paled as she saw the evidence. You see, I said, turning slightly to face my family. You taught me patience. You taught me to wait for the right moment. And that moment is now. I stepped away from the podium and walked toward Vanessa, keeping my voice calm, but commanding. This isn't revenge, I said, voice low, almost intimate. It's justice. It's truth. And it's a lesson you all need to understand. Underestimating someone you've wronged is a mistake you only make once. Vanessa's eyes were wet with fear and anger. Zaha, no. Stop, I said firmly. Not a word. You acted, you schemed, and now you will witness the consequences. Evan tried to speak, but I raised a hand. You will learn from this silently. Not because I am cruel, but because that is how respect is earned. I could see the weight of realization pressing down on them. They understood now. Their schemes were useless, their manipulation exposed, and their father, the man they thought they could humiliate, had not only survived but risen higher than ever. I returned to the podium, tapping the microphone lightly. And for the record, I said, my voice echoing through the room, all retirement funds, all assets, and all future earnings are now under my direct management. Any attempts to interfere will be met with legal consequences. And yes, I've ensured that everyone who tried to undermine me is fully aware of this. Vanessa's face turned pale. Evan's eyes widened in shock. Chloe's lips trembled. I could almost hear the internal panic. And finally, I said, letting a pause hang for dramatic effect, I forgive those who acted out of ignorance or fear. But those who tried to destroy me will never forget this lesson. I let that sink in. Let them feel it. Let them understand that I was no longer the man they thought they could control. Stepping back, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. The years of humiliation, the disrespect, the betrayal, all of it had led to this moment. I thought about my life, my work, my accomplishments. I realized something essential. Revenge wasn't about anger. It was about reclaiming what was yours. Dignity, control, respect. And at 62, I had done exactly that. Vanessa tried to approach me again. Zaha, can we? I shook my head gently. No, not now. You will understand in time. And you will remember this lesson forever. Evan muttered something about fairness. Chloe looked ready to cry, but I didn't flinch. Their panic, their realization, their guilt, it was perfectly justified. I smiled faintly. They thought they had power. Now they understood they never did. As I turned to leave the stage, a voice called out, Zaha, wait. I froze. Could this be Vanessa's last desperate attempt? Or was it something else, a new challenge, a hidden betrayal I hadn't anticipated? I didn't answer. I let the room fall silent. Let suspense hang like a weight. Because every story has its final twist, and the next move is mine. Comment. If someone betrayed you in front of everyone, how would you reclaim your dignity? The day after the launch, the hotel felt quieter. The crowd had dispersed, the cameras gone, but the echoes of yesterday's revelations lingered like a storm cloud. Vanessa and the kids hadn't returned my calls. Good. Let them stew in uncertainty. I wasn't chasing them. I was reclaiming my space, my power, my life. I walked through the empty conference hall, polished floors reflecting the chandeliers above. It felt surreal, like I was alone in a world I had just conquered. Zaha, you did it, I murmured to myself. You faced humiliation, betrayal, and disrespect. And now, you're standing taller than ever. By late afternoon, Vanessa appeared at my office doorway. She looked hesitant, fragile even, but I could see the pride battling with shame in her eyes. Evan and Chloe trailed silently behind her. Zaha, Vanessa began, voice low, we need to talk. Sit. I interrupted, gesturing toward the chairs across from my desk. You have words, I have patience. Let's see if they match. Evan muttered, Dad, we didn't understand. You thought wrong. I replied firmly. You thought you could manipulate me, control me, humiliate me in public. You were wrong. Every step of the way. And now it's time you see the consequences of underestimating someone who refuses to be broken. Chloe looked at me with wide eyes, her voice trembling. Dad, we were sorry. I let silence answer her. Apologies were easy. Actions were what mattered. Vanessa finally spoke, voice steady but laced with regret. I misjudged everything. I underestimated you. I thought retirement meant weakness. I leaned back in my chair, looking at her carefully. You learned too late. But yes, retirement doesn't mean weakness. It means experience, wisdom, and patience. And I used all three to protect what's mine. Evan, trying to regain some pride, interjected. But Dad, can we fix things? I considered his words carefully. This was the turning point. Could I forgive? Could I restore some semblance of family without letting the past control me? Yes, I said slowly. But on my terms. Respect, honesty, and accountability. Anything less is unacceptable. Chloe exhaled, relief flooding her face. Vanessa nodded silently. After the family confrontation, I turned my attention back to work. Samuel and I met to review the division's progress. The investors were thrilled. The press coverage from the launch had already created waves. And every decision I made, every strategy, was now executed with a calm authority I had never felt before. "This is it, Zaha," Samuel said. "You've turned humiliation into power. People respect you, fear you, and trust you, all at once." I smiled. "Samuel, this isn't just about respect. It's about control. Control over my life, my legacy, and my family. Everything else will follow." Later, Vanessa approached me in private. "Zaha, I know we can't erase what happened, but can we start over? Not as before, but as something honest." I studied her carefully. Her eyes were sincere, her posture humble, and yet I couldn't forget the past. "You may try," I said finally, "but this time the power balance has changed. No one walks over me again. Not you, not the kids, not anyone." Her lips quivered. "I understand." I nodded. The reconciliation wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And for the first time in years, I felt relieved, strong, and vindicated. That evening, I stood on my balcony, looking at the city skyline. Lights shimmered like stars caught on Earth. I thought about every betrayal, every humiliation, every moment I'd been doubted. And now, I was free. Free from fear, free from manipulation, free from the weight of public shame. I allowed myself a quiet smile. I did it. I survived. I thrived. I reclaimed my life. For the first time, I felt complete. But as I looked out over the city, a subtle flicker of doubt crept in. Vanessa and the kids were sincere now, but would sincerity last? Or would old habits die hard? The story wasn't over yet. There were still decisions to make, boundaries to enforce, and trust to rebuild. And that next step would define everything. Comment: how would you handle a family that betrayed you after years of loyalty? The morning after the confrontation felt almost serene. The city below shimmered as sunlight glinted off the skyscrapers. But inside my penthouse, the tension was palpable. I had achieved victory, my family exposed, my dignity reclaimed. But now came the most difficult part: ensuring lasting respect and accountability. Vanessa, Evan, and Chloe had requested a meeting. They were hesitant, careful, eyes darting, almost as if expecting another attack. But I was ready, not with anger, but with authority. "Sit," I commanded gently, gesturing toward the leather chairs around my office table. They complied, silently, uneasily. "I'm not here to lecture," I began, my tone calm but firm. "I am here to define expectations. Yesterday, you witnessed the consequences of betrayal. Today, you will understand the boundaries of respect." Vanessa nodded, swallowing hard. "Zaha, not yet," I said, raising a finger. "Let's set this straight. The company, my finances, my retirement, all are secure. You will have access and involvement only under rules I define. Any overstepping, any attempt to manipulate or undermine will be met with action, immediate and irrevocable." Evan shifted in his seat. "Dad, you're being strict." I leaned forward, piercing eyes on him. "I'm being realistic. You learn the hard way that respect must be earned. Not assumed. Not demanded. Earned." Chloe quietly added, "We understand, Dad. We really do." I let their words linger. Recognition was the first step toward redemption. I stood and moved toward the window, overlooking the city. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it allows us to move forward, carefully. You want reconciliation? You'll earn it through honesty, accountability, and action, not words. Vanessa took a deep breath. "I promise from now on, no lies. No schemes. Just honesty." I smiled faintly. "Promises are easy. Action is hard. Let's see if you are capable of it." Evan and Chloe nodded silently, understanding the weight of what I expected. Later that day, I returned to the office floor. Staff greeted me warmly, investors called to congratulate me, and media outlets still ran stories praising the launch and my comeback. I realized that my personal triumph mirrored my professional one. Both required patience, observation, and strategic action. Samuel approached me. "Zaha, the team is inspired. They've seen how you handled family and business simultaneously. You've earned respect beyond anyone's imagination." I nodded. "It's more than respect, it's authority. Authority that comes from patience, strategy, and self-control. People fear chaos, but respect structure. and that is what I provide. Over the next few days, my family began tentative steps toward rebuilding trust. Vanessa joined me for lunch in my office, a quiet moment of reconciliation. "Zaha," she said softly, "I want to thank you for teaching us, not punishing us." "Teaching is far more lasting than punishing," I replied. "You needed to learn the weight of your actions. And you did." Evan approached, hesitant. "Dad, I understand now. I want to do better." "You will," I said. "But it's up to you to prove it." Chloe smiled faintly. "I'm ready, Dad. I promise." It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Alone that night, I sat by the balcony, watching the city lights shimmer like stars. I thought back on the humiliation, the betrayal, the anger, and I realized something important. Revenge isn't about rage. It's about reclaiming control, asserting boundaries, and ensuring respect. I whispered to myself, almost like a mantra, "I am Zaha. I am patient. I am in control. I am respected." A sense of calm washed over me. The storm had passed. I had faced betrayal, public humiliation, and family schemes, and emerged not only unbroken but stronger than ever. The next morning, I called Vanessa, Evan, and Chloe to my study. "Today," I said, "is the first day of a new chapter. No secrets, no schemes, no lies. You are part of this family, and this business, if and only if honesty guides your actions." Vanessa nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Zaha. I understand." Evan swallowed hard. "We all do, Dad." Chloe smiled softly. "I promise, no more mistakes." I looked at them, calm, confident, and resolute. "Then we move forward, together, or not at all. Your choice." They understood. This time, it was real. As I turned to leave the room, a faint email alert appeared on my phone. I glanced down. Another potential challenge, another opportunity to assert control. I smiled faintly. The story never truly ends. But for now, I have won. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.